Welcome to the kingdom. I'm Chris, and this is Good Enough Gaming. Howdy folks, and welcome to this painting tutorial where we are going to be painting the Master Chief for the new Halo Flashpoint game from Mantic Games. There's a demo game of this I've already put up online, and I didn't have any of the models painted, but now I'm finally getting down to it. So here is the model that comes with the starter set of paints that also is sold along with Halo Flashpoint. So as a challenge, and also as part of this tutorial, I am only going to use the colors and the brush that come in this paint set. So let's see what kind of finished product we can get if we just limit ourselves to what's in the box. So naturally, after priming it black, the first color I'm going to put on this is the green for that really iconic kind of camo fatigue color for his armor. Now this took me a lot longer than I normally would have wanted to, because I'm using the brush that came with the set, and as you can see, it's a very, very tiny brush. So it takes me a little while, but I had a good movie or book I was listening to, so it went by fairly quickly. So after a couple coats to get some solid color, I thought, wow, this guy looks like the inside of a ripe avocado. That is so bright. So I was really hoping either A, I had failed to mix the paints, but I didn't. So B, I was really hoping that there was a wash in the set that would darken that, because that is awful. Now, fortunately, there was a bottle of wash, and they called it the Flood. Nice job, guys. Well played. Now, it's a black wash, so I wasn't sure exactly how this was going to work instead of being a camo green, but it's the only wash we got, and since I'm using what's in the box, so I gave this guy a fairly generous wash. I didn't want it to pool. I didn't blob it on there. But as I was painting it, I thought, you know what? I may have to do a couple layers of this. And as you can see here, after the first layer dried, that's looking a million times better. That is a much darker look to it. Now, while I thought that was pretty good, because I only have that one color of green, it'll be very difficult to get midtones, dark tones, highlights with just one color. So I decided to do something a little different here. In order to get a nice gradient of that green, after the wash dried, I went back over and repainted fairly large portions of it, especially the parts on the top, the parts that would catch a light shining down from below. I repainted them with the original green. Now you might say, well, you just shadowed it to darken it. Why? Why are you doing that? It's because since I only have one green, to get a dark, I'd put the wash on. To get the highlight, I could use the original, but what about the midtone? So after repainting the panels, it's back up to a bit of an avocado, but I'm going to put another layer of wash and then another layer of the green to essentially get 3 different tones of the same green. So here's after one layer of green, then a layer of wash, and then another layer of the green. And here's what it looks like after the second layer of wash. So you can start to look and see now where the first layer of green and wash is creating really dark shadows. The second layer of green with the wash is now my midtone. So the final step is to go back over it one more time, but this time just doing like edge highlighting with that original green to get the really, the stark contrast and highlights just on the very edges. So with each layer of green, I paint a little less than the layer before. And with this final layer, if it's an entire panel like on the kneecap or the chest that's going to get a lot of light, I repainted it. If not, I tried to just paint the edge so that I could create that gradient of color. So here is the finished product. 3 layers of green, 2 washes, and I think that's pretty darn good. It gives him a lot of shadow, a lot of highlight, a lot of variation, and it doesn't look like a bowl of guacamole. So now let's move on to some of the details. First detail is all of the black pieces of the under armor. The areas where the green metal plating doesn't show. So there's joints in the legs, the gloves on the hands. So first, using black, I got to tidy it up because while we were doing the green, there was a lot of spillover. You can see on the right leg there, I basically painted that entire section of the leg that wasn't supposed to be green at all. So quick job to tidy it up, and then we'll move on to highlighting. So for our first highlight, we're just going to use straight up this Tech Suit Gray, and we're going to put it covering about half of all the areas that are black. We definitely want to leave some of the black still showing so that it serves as the darkest shadow. But just spin the model around, look for areas where there's sharp edges. On the arms there and the hands, we'd paint the knuckles, we'd paint parts of the finger. And then for the chest part, I tried to pick out the shapes and details that were on the chest. So like kind of the rib cage, stomach muscle looking parts of the armor. Just paint those to basically draw those highlighted ridges in. And when it's all done, we now have some more definition on the black part of the armor. Now we just add an edge highlight to give it a more kind of futuristic, clean, shiny look to it. So here's where we have to do the next thing that's a little tricky. Because there's only one color of gray, we're going to have to mix it. So using the white that comes in the set, I did basically a 1-to-1 ratio to get a lighter gray and just going to touch the edges as you can see here. This is only supposed to be the reflection of the bright reflection of light that you see when you shine a light on something metallic or very, very shiny. So don't make the stripe here too long or it'll look a little too Tron-like. And for the chest, I emphasized on the top areas and frontal areas of the chest muscles. So when it's all done here, it's looking pretty good because we've got some detail, some depth, and I also used the plain white to also do the numbers on the front of his chest there. So now, probably one of the most iconic and real good colorful accents on a model like this is his visor. Now, I was really impressed with this gold. It has a much more yellow look than Retributor armor, which is what I usually use for gold, and the coverage was really, really impressive. So nice job on this one. Normally, I'm not a huge fan of Army Painter paints, but so far I like the ones I worked with in this set. So the Master Chief is done. Now we have to paint the sword. That's going to be a little tricky because we have one color to work with. So we'll start off with the base of blue to give the entire sword a nice solid blue coat, and from there we'll highlight upwards. Now what I did for the lighter colors is I had a blob of blue and a blob of the white, and I would take one maybe drop on the edge of the brush, mix it in with the entire blob of blue to lighten the whole thing, paint a stripe on it like you can see here, most of the extended part of the blade. Then add another drop of white to that same blue, paint the same areas, but not quite the whole thing. So as you'll see here, when I paint on the long, elongated edges of the blade, skip an eighth of an inch or something like that, and paint that. Then add another drop of white, and keep doing the same thing over and over and over. The very last thing is a pure white, as almost a dot, just on the very sharpest corners of the sword and the very tip of the blade. Once that's done, you want to get one of the mid-tone blues and add these little stripes, these little slashes of paint, because otherwise the sword looks too clean. It doesn't look like energy is flowing through it. And there he is, all finished, using just the brush and the colors available in the box. So this guy was a little trickier to paint than I thought he'd be. I thought the ridges would be fairly easy, but they added some challenges. I really like the new paints. I've done Army Painter in the past. I didn't like them at all. They were really gummy. They didn't thin very well, but these new ones are a lot thinner, easier to work with, but still having nice, bold color. So let me know what you guys think. What are you painting up? What color schemes? Are you going to go traditional red versus blue and then have one green guy for the Master Chief? Put it on down in the comments. I'll see you on the next one. And until then, keep your dice on the table.